What's crazy is that higher ed isn't just not teaching students how to have productive debates that actually get somewhere. They are allowing and even facilitating habits of dismissing people by identity, for example, by finding out if someone has done something bad in their whole life, and therefore your opinion on something completely different is no longer taken seriously. Campuses shouldn't be within 1,000 yards of these kind of poor rhetorical tactics, but they're actually teaching them.
Mm-hmm. Well, exactly. I mean, it's not just sort of encouraged, but it's like the way it's done. And looking through I think you have 10 of these different
case studies,
arguments, ways of arguing that allow you to avoid having a reasoned discussion.
Yeah.
Right. And looking through this, I mean, this is just what everybody does right now.
Yeah.
It's very rare to have just an actual conversation where there's some level of disagreement, where you're trying to figure out the truth of the matter.
Yeah. Well, grifter is one. And so we set it up nicely in that we have the first chunk we call the obstacle course, which are standard logical fallacies. That includes, accusations of bad faith. Someone's a bad person, so therefore they have all bad opinions, which is what we talk about as the fourth grade Untruth in the book. But in this case, it's an accusation. The word that best epitomizes this is grifter. Basically saying that, I've defended thousands of students, over the years. I'm second to none in terms of defending faculty and student rights. And people who know nothing about my work will immediately be like, oh yeah, it's a grift talking about this stuff. And it's like, well, unfortunately, you call everybody grifters that you don't want to listen to. This is just an assumption of bad faith and just an insult as a way to avoid actually engaging in any serious way.
And I wonder if I can dive in.
Sure.
I often wonder whether it's not also a projection, because the person themselves has bad faith, so they assume you do.
I actually, the next one I want to talk about is what we call hypocrisy projection.
Okay.
And if you start looking on the interwebs, you will see this everywhere, particularly X and Threads, etc. I can't tell you how many times someone, when there's a case in the news of, and by the way, you get this both from the right and the left sometimes, when FIRE takes a case where we're defending a lefty, which is often, you'll have someone from the right come up and like, where were you on this case, involving the right? And we're like, here's the lawsuit we filed on behalf of this professor. We're quoted in the following 20 things here. You only care about one side of the political fence. You projected that onto us, and because you can't grok the idea that there might actually be consistent defenders of free speech. And we watch the same thing on the left, and it's really funny because, like, time and time again, people will be accused of, where are you on this case that I just learned about where a lefty got in trouble? And it's like, okay, first of all, how about you do something to help that professor, first of all. Second of all, do your homework. We commented on this a month ago, and here are the letters that we wrote. I remember one time someone actually did this, citing a document that was a FIRE document. Like, FIRE's not going anywhere near this. I'm like, you're literally citing a document that you didn't even know was actually produced by a FIRE FOIA request. So hypocrisy projection is one of these really lame and embarrassing techniques that we tend to use in the age of social media, where people want to just W a hypocrite, W a grifter, so they don't have to think.
I'm remembering something else, and I think this appears at least twice in your book. It's a quote from Solzhenitsyn. The line between good and evil goes through every human heart. Tell me about that.
Well, I thought our society was improving in our moral sophistication maybe 20 years ago. That increasingly our art moved from typically, like TV shows, for example, moved from typically, good versus evil, heroic characters, or even just good characters who are kind-hearted, to more exploration of people who were actually really bad in a lot of different ways, but then also showing the weird relatability and humanity that they oftentimes had in themselves as well. And I thought we were moving to a level at which there was like, you know what, if we take human nature seriously, there is good and evil inside of all of us, and that essentially we do have complicated motives, and things are oftentimes more morally complicated than we think, and there are genuine moral dilemmas where your only choices are situations that might be truly awful and only slightly less. And somehow, as we seem to be progressing that way, everything went entirely in the reverse. And in Coddling of the American Mind, we call this the third great untruth. And the untruths are the ideas of as if the worst guru in the world was giving you the stupidest advice you ever heard in your life that will make you miserable. It disagrees with ancient wisdom and with modern psychological thought. So the first three great untruths that we cover in Coddling are what doesn't kill you makes you weaker. Always trust your feelings, which sounds nice, but it's terrible advice. And as someone said, your feelings are data, not directions. And three, life is a battle between good people and evil people, exclusively. And in this book, we introduce the fourth, which is no bad person has any good argument. That essentially, if I can, magically declare you bad, I don't have to think about any argument you made, even though I know full well bad people sometimes make correct arguments and good people often make wrong ones. There's kind of no relationship between these two.
Don't forget to subscribe to our Alerts newsletter, and you'll never miss an episode.